The purpose of Wealth Talk is to educate, inform, and hopefully entertain you on the subject of building your wealth. Wealth Builders recommends you should always take independent financial, tax, or legal advice before making any decisions around your finances.
Welcome to episode 51 of Wealth Talk. My name's Christian Rodwell, the Membership Director for Wealth Builders, and I'm joined today by our founder, Mr. Kevin Whelan.
Welcome to my office, Chris.
Yes.
The tractors are going a bit mad outside, so
we're back in the hot seats.
I don't know whether it's coronavirus or mad cow disease, but there's a bit of activity going on.
I know. Well, we won't sit too close to one another today, but no, it's good to be back together today. And we had our 50th episode last week, so we're kind of almost through the 7 pillars now. Not quite. We've done a trot round though, haven't we? We've given an insight into home capacity and pensions and investments, and we've done quite a bit on property and business, and we've definitely done the IP bit and see some of our students have written books and starting to power through, and joint ventures were tickling, and there's more to come obviously in joint ventures. But yeah, it's been an interesting trawl through. Did you have a thought in mind? Well, picking up on last week's episode, we were speaking to Mike Davis there, and there was a real thread of relationships and that return on interaction, which is one of the ROIs that I know you've talked about in the past, Kevin.
If I've got loads of ROIs, Chris, you know me.
So now that we've kind of talked about all the pillars, are there some threads that we can draw together here which almost provide a bit of a blueprint, almost a roadmap for someone to understand where they are on that journey?
Mm-hmm. What, in the context of ROI? I could probably do that.
Well, one of your key phrases, Kevin, is the ROI of relationship, opportunity, idea, and you can explain that.
So I can. And look, we know that so many people don't make it. They don't even start the journey, let alone get to the end, which is, let's say, we know the 5 levels of wealth by now. The one we're aiming for all of our wealth builder community is at least get to financial independence, that's level 3, and then through to abundance, and then through to leaving a wonderful legacy. And these are all very laudable things. But where people get stuck and where they might want to think about if they're getting stuck, it's probably an ROI issue. What I mean by that, Chris, is, if you heard from Mike, you can tell from me that I just love being curious about different ways you can build wealth, and love getting distinctions from people. And I get them from everywhere. So I don't pretend like I know everything. I'm still a sponge for insights from other people. And that's the point you just made, that at the very, very beginning of your journey, you need to think like you're one relationship, one opportunity, one idea from a complete transformation of your wealth. And when you have that feeling, almost childlike, it gives you a curiosity to not prejudge. Because I see when people get stuck at the beginning, they don't even roll the dice. They don't even get to Old Kent Road on the Monopoly board. They're still stuck at go, but they ain't going. Is 2 things. One is they prejudge instead of being that curious person and just be willing to explore and do things, meet people and just get that started. The other thing they get stuck on is they don't have a strong enough reason why. And the kind of interested people, well, I'm interested in being wealthy. And the issue with that, Chris, is if you are committed to it, you absolutely certainly will take all the right actions. If you're not committed but interested, you'll find every excuse under the sun. And we hear it, don't we? And they blame things. So the problem of not being wealthy does not lie outside of you. And the very essence of building wealth is to ensure that you have all of that control. So it doesn't matter what happens in the economy, interest rates, stock market, coronavirus, nothing matters when you conclude the journey. But yes, it can derail you a little bit when you're on it. And this is why you need a reason to overcome inertia. Remember we said on the previous podcast, an object at rest stays at rest unless something moves it. And, I'm pretty strong, so I like to kick people up the cahoots, the rear end a little bit to try and but look, it's fun and I do it for a good reason because I know people get stuck because their reason isn't strong enough. So if they are not pushing themselves, I'm willing to give them a little bit of a pull or a little bit of a kick just to overcome that inertia. So they're the two things that get people stuck at the beginning. So if you're feeling like you're prejudging and you don't have that curiosity of the relationship opportunity or idea, transformation, imagining you're going to be transformed, because everybody who's wealthy is transformed inside. They become a different person. So you have to do that. And then secondly, if you're getting stuck, go back to your reason why. Is it strong enough? Is it powerful enough? Will it overcome when life gets in the way, and it looks hard? Will you go ahead and carry on taking action? And that's where the 2 ROIs are at the beginning. Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is. And we know that 95% of the population simply don't make it to a place of independence.
Yeah, and they get stuck there.
And we know the reasons why. We hear it all the time.
Yeah.
It's the fear of making mistakes. It's not having enough time, just being too busy, perhaps thinking they don't have enough money to get started.
Yeah.
They're just lack of funds. And the big one is just not really having the education, not having a plan, never really having been told, how can you do this? How can you achieve this? And having that belief, as you say, the mindset.
Well, yeah, and I suppose really, Chris, if we boil it down, if we're reflecting on 50 weeks of our best effort to help people, I think probably another big one is overwhelm. It's seeing the picture is too big. Seeing the journey is too big instead of seeing the next step. And the next step is actually quite easy because the first step, the easy step, right? You don't have to think about how far you're going. Just think about the first step. It's always, always, always education. And that's the same thing about the curiosity, isn't it? It's being curious enough to say, I'm not going to prejudge the knowledge. I'm just going to spend some time to learn something and see how I react to it. And that, sir, is an ROI, return on intellect.
Okay, so ROI number 3.
ROI, oh, we're counting now.
That's untwisted.
Oh, right, yeah, it's okay. ROI number 3, but that means you're moving. Yeah, so you're stuck at the beginning, no reason to overcome inertia, you're not curious enough to think about the relationship opportunity idea concept. So overcome those, make a step. The first step is education. Now, we've given so many ideas on how to start education. Start with us, start with somebody else, find money in your debits, get some free education, read some books, listen to something on Audible. Let something penetrate a quarter of an inch between your ears and start to do at least a little bit of that education. And when you do that, you'll find that if you've got a strong reason why, you will do something about that. And the next thing to do, I think, is to get support. And that support, like any form of connection with somebody else, is not to DIY. Because the DIY journey is a miserable, lonely journey that gets you going down cul-de-sacs. And I don't say this self-servingly because we're helpers, because this is not angled towards people working with us at all, Chris. It's just saying wherever you go and get help, whoever you choose to resonate with, find somebody you can learn to trust. And that there are people trustworthy, worthy of your trust. Now, if you do that, you get a return on interaction. Number 4, right? Return on interaction takes 2 forms. The interaction with a coach, a guide, a mentor, a helper. It could be the interaction with a spouse or partner, loved one. And it could be a connection to somebody else who's on the journey, usually and ideally slightly ahead of you. The reason why you would want to connect with somebody slightly ahead of you is they've already overcome some of the inertia that's held you back. And they can show you the path. They can say, don't go down this cul-de-sac. We've been there, we've done that, as long as they come from a place of integrity. And that's why I'm proud of the Wealth Builder community, because, we have our community sign the declaration, a new Declaration of Independence, all about integrity, all about sharing, all about helping, and unreservedly, and not for self-purpose. It's not a promotional community. We try and stop that. Obviously, one or two people will try and promote, but we stop that. The whole idea is help. So when people help each other and trust is involved in the whole process, then you get the very first financial return. But you don't get a financial return until you invest in the education, invest in the support, invest in connections, because you can't turn the wheel.
That I was going to say, and you can't cheat the wheel.
You can't cheat the wheel, so you've got to get that level of support from people to try and make sure that you've taken care of the due diligence piece. Now, this is an odd ROI, Chris, because most people think about ROIs in kind of like a positive thing, like the return on my investment. Mm-hmm. What's the financial return? And that's what happens when you turn the wheel. Mm. But don't forget stage 4, which is the DD stage, the due diligence stage. And that means you're risk mitigating. You're looking very carefully about how to protect yourself, which therefore preserves the return of your investment. Mm-hmm. Now, I've given you 2 in short order there. So due diligence, stage 4 in the Wheel of Wealth, helps you preserve your capital, return of your investment. When you conclude the wheel, that's when you get the flow of cash or the flow of capital, and that means you're getting a return on that total investment of your time, mm-hmm. your interactions, your education, and you're turning that wheel. And that's the first job. That's kind of like your first year as objective. Mm-hmm. So if you're on a wealth building journey, and for the most part we know, and we never try and tell people this is a get rich quick scheme, it's a get rich certain scheme and a get rich medium term, 5 to 7 years for most people. First month, overcome your inertia. Month 2 to 12, turn the wheel. Get something added to your asset income. So you're moving, through the level of insecurity to security. And it doesn't matter how fast you go, but you should be able to turn at least one wheel. Everybody can turn one wheel in a year. I don't know anybody who can't.
Yeah.
So that would be objective number 1. And if you turn it 2 or 3 times, great.
Yeah.
But for most people, one turn, anybody, it doesn't matter what your time is, no matter what, as long as you overcome inertia, if you don't do that, you're getting nowhere.
And again, it comes back to the overwhelm that a wheel turn can just be a small wheel turn. It could be an extra £100 a month.
It could be £100 a month. As long as it's something that meaningfully moves you towards your objective. So £100 a month could be a wheel turn. If it's, lots of people do wealth in different ways. It could be just starting the idea of investing in trackers or something. So you're getting some money invested. So what you're getting is a growth on that money. So it could be any measurement. At least if it's in the first year, you're not really so much measuring your asset income. You're more measuring your activity. So I'd say year 1 is activity driven, not necessarily results driven. If you can get results as well, you're ahead of the game. Mm. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So once you've done that, so you've done your DD, you protected the return of your investment, you made a decision, you concluded the wheel, you're getting a return on your investment. You're starting to measure something. Something's happening. That's good.
The wealth thermometer is rising.
The wealth thermometer is rising, right? But not too high, not more than 37.8, because then you're going to have to self-isolate. So you don't want it to go too high, but you want to get it moving. Once you get it moving, the next thing, Chris, and it's all logical, is you stop and you pause and you have a cup of tea and a Kit Kat and you have a little think and you go, right, was that a good wheel turn for me? Did you enjoy it? Did it give you the result you want? Did it turn the wheel completely and generate something for you? If the answer is no, it didn't, you discovered something about yourself or the asset or the method by which you'd have to manage that asset that absolutely said, no, 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 not for me. You lift the wheel off some imaginary
spindle.
Yeah, okay, all right. You know, gear shift or whatever, you know, like a cylinder. And you imagine, and we're talking today, you can see what I'm doing, but they can't. You lift the wheel off, you put it on the floor, you thank it for its contribution to your transformation, and say, thank you, wheel number one, you were not right for me. I am now going back, not back to the start, because you've overcome inertia and you've learned something, you turn a different wheel.
This is actually step 7 in the 7 steps to wealth.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, we don't want to confuse too many steps and too many things in one podcast.
Our roadmap for building wealth, you know, it always comes to that point where you know, you make that decision. And just to be clear for anyone listening, perhaps, you know, it's only a couple of episodes in and they're thinking, what are we talking about?
Go back to number 1.
So when we talk about turning a wheel, this is really any kind of, you know, strategy within the pillars. So it could be buy to let.
It could be buy to let, it could be investing in the stock market, it could be creating a business, you know, it could be creating a side hustle.
Selling something online.
It could be renting a room at home. Yeah. You know, it could be any of the assets and the leverage that exists within each of the pillars. It could be creating a SaaS or just doing something, just reducing the charges on your pension. It could be any number of different things that you can do. And the key thing is doing something you can measure, even if it's activity. And then once you get to that place where you found a wheel that turns, you like the wheel's now adding cash or capital in your life. Obviously, ideally cash flow, but doesn't matter at the beginning. You want to measure something. You go again. Yeah. So if you enjoy that wheel, go again. Now you're going to be better, like riding a bike. You know, you can imagine that, or driving a car. You get better with practice.
Yeah. Confidence.
All of those things, and you go, well, hang on, man, this is not that hard. I've already done it once. You can do it again, and usually the second turn of the wheel is quicker, and you do so with more speed and more confidence. You say, and when you start turning wheels, and you know you're doing it, you can imagine it. This is wheel number 2, wheel number 3. That is a new ROI, return on impetus. You're moving now. You know, it's like the rocket coming out of gravity, the steam engine getting a full head. You're moving. You've overcome the hard stuff. And everybody's getting stuck at the beginning, Chris. But once you've overcome it, it's so easy after that.
Just picture the cogs turning and all connecting and it all starting.
It really does work. So, you know, if you're stuck now, go back to the beginning. If you're not sure of the wheel, doesn't matter if your first wheel turns don't work. We hear a lot of people saying, you know, the numbers don't stack up. This doesn't stack up. That doesn't stack up. Okay. Keep doing the activity until it stacks up. Or if it never stacks up, change the wheel. Yeah. You can't make things stack just because you keep... It's like banging your head against a brick wall saying, well, you know, the pain isn't going away. Yeah. Stop banging your head against a brick wall. Change to a different wall. I know I'm mixing up my metaphors here, Chris, because I'm rambling. However, what ROI are we up to? Return on impetus. What number is that?
Let me see.
6?
I think it could be 6 or 7, yeah.
All right, anyway, we're cooking on gas now, right? So once you've done impetus, now if you imagine impetus, right, so it doesn't really matter what asset it is. When you've done it 3 times, you pretty much know exactly what you're doing. You know, 3 properties, 3 businesses, 3. The first one you learned, the second one you got better, the third one you kind of crack it. That's pretty much what I normally see. So that's your key objective. When you get 3 solid wheel turns, you should almost, if not already, be at security, which means you're free from the need to rely on business. You have to be in it. Or in a job, you're free from the need for that. I'm not saying give up your job, get rid of your business. I'm just saying you're free.
Gives that peace of mind.
Now it gives you more focus to either turn a different wheel, which is more powerful, Okay, so you just go back and say, well, now I know how to do that. You've got the confidence, you're making more connections, you're getting more impetus, you get to a place where, you can either choose a different wheel or, which is a really popular thing to do, especially with property as an example, is you run out of money because your own leverage runs out. You then show your expertise and you get something called return of investor. What that means is you show your competence and then people want to help you replicate that confidence because your confidence is generating cash flow. They don't know how. So the sort of people who would do that will more likely be either behind you on the wheel and they would like to be an investor to learn what you know, come back to that point, or they're way ahead of you on the wheel, people like Mike Davis, for example, who sees what you're doing and says, well, you're doing a great job. I'll just invest money for a return on their investment in a joint venture. So you can see people ahead of you and behind you, and they can become your investors, and that's called return on investment. I teach people how to create solutions for investors behind them and ahead of them to make that really powerful so they never run out of the fuel to keep their journey going. Making sense?
I like it.
Yeah? You want another one?
Let's go. We're on a roll.
On a roll. The next one, imagine now, just keep thinking, Chris. You've done it, you've made all the money, you're now at independence, you're cooking on gas now, other people are investing with you, they're seeking you out, they're following you, they're doing that's happening. You can see it in the Facebook group with some of our own students now, even after 9 months, 12 months, they start putting down the work they've done and documenting it in a system, in a process, in a book or an e-book or a training course. Now, you know what that return is. Mm-hmm. It's a ROI.
Yeah.
What's that one?
Return on intellectual property.
Return on IP.
Yeah.
And again, we're seeing students who've done that. It tends not to happen in the first 12 months, but certainly happens in subsequent years. We've had a number of our ex-students, if you like, don't need us anymore. Their impetus is flying, right? So they don't need us. But actually, sometimes they come and help us, don't they?
Absolutely.
They want to give back. Mm-hmm. And that's another ROI, which I'll get to. But the IP thing is really saying, hey, I started off this journey not knowing anything. I had a strong enough reason to overcome the inertia. I did exactly what I was asked to do in the Wealth Builder community. I followed. Now people are following me. Now I have the right to be an authority. I have the right to show my expertise. And that's when you create IP.
So this really is where you're bringing leverage into play, because we're talking about the leverage of relationships.
Yeah.
And we're talking about the leverage of intellect, which, again, is tying everything we've talked about over previous episodes with the FIRST model.
The whole thing is an extraordinarily elegant, virtuous circle of outstanding stuff. That means when you get to a place of independence and you follow this guidance, abundance is unstoppable. You can't stop because everything is working. It's like whatever analogy you want to work, it can't stop because the energy to keep it going is teeny tiny, because you're doing it and people are following you. That's when you get to Mike's stage, when you talked about impact.
I remember that.
This is return on impact. This is now you're in a position where you no longer need to focus on yourself. Now, remember, he said it still makes profit, but the ultimate vision of so many really successful entrepreneurs is no longer themselves.
No. We see that with all the billionaires now, don't we?
Well, yeah, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? So, it's we're not suggesting people will become billionaires. That's a very, very, very big number, as we know. But if we can get to people to be financially independent, and we know on average in our community that's 10 grand a month. 10 grand a month, perfectly laudable. You can power through that through abundance. and then you've got the ability then to impact on others. And so that's the next ROI, return on impact. You're giving back in so many different ways, whether it's through philanthropy, whether it's through just charity, whether it's through just giving your time. So many people do that, and that's a key part of getting through to abundance. And that's obviously important to Mike. It's important to me. And then the final one, we'll have to count them back now, really, won't we? But the final one is return on inheritance. Now, what I mean by that is you kind of documented your life's journey. You become the pioneer and the creator of your family's mission. So it's no longer about making money. This is about teaching and wisdom on how you started this, why you started this, what you did. And I would encourage everybody to document that on the way. In fact, I'd really go back to the beginning and I'd name it now. I'd name your wealth business something now. We talked about that on a previous podcast, didn't we?
We did. Team Rodwell.
Team Rodwell, yeah, but I'm not sure about that one, right? I think you need to go back to that drawing board, but it could be that. Rodwell Being is a great one because it talks about well-being.
Yeah.
That could be financial, health, all of those things, So joking apart, if you go back and think in that reason to overcome inertia, number one, reason to overcome inertia. Number two, always seek out a relationship opportunity idea. Right? Let's count them. Number two. Right? Number three, return on intellect. That's the beginning of the wheel. Yeah. Number four, return on interaction. Connect, do not DIY. So we're stopping you from drifting. We're stopping you from DIY. Then we focus on the return of your investment in the DD stage. That then leads you to return of your investment. Number six. Yeah. Where do we go from there? We do it again. Return on impetus, number 7. It's like you're moving through gears.
So at any time you can check in and see where you're getting stuck.
Yes. It's almost like when you're in a car, you know where you are because you've I suppose
you have a dashboard.
You have a dashboard.
Well,
right. So you've got a dashboard. In the old days when old cars were manual, you could tell where you were by the position of your hand. Now you can see it on your either a heads-up display or
on your new electric.
Yes.
I'm sure you will be able to.
No. Any electric car will do as a tax-free benefit. It doesn't have to be a Jaguar I-Pace. Other electric cars are available, Chris. Then we go to impetus. Then we look for the investors to help continue that impetus. Then we create our IP. Then we teach our IP to the next generation. That's it.
So I think we've got 11 ROIs there.
So I'm going to try and find 12 somewhere, right? Because if I get 12, then we teach one ROI a month.
Yeah.
But
I like that. I really
like that. Because it's almost like you can see it's like a pyramid for good. Starting off at the bottom, getting it right, moving up through the layers, transforming yourself as you go. And maybe these ROIs are little kind of aid memoirs almost, like a little judge. And what ROI am I working on now? So at least you can see it's a milestone. And if it takes 11 milestones to be financially abundant, and you can work your way through that, if it's 11 or 12, it doesn't matter. But it's doable.
Yeah. You can really see here that this isn't something that you can achieve overnight, and that if you commit to this and you just follow that process, then, as you've said many times, 5 to 7 years.
5 to 7 years is normal. Some people can do it much more quickly, but usually it's because they've got a big chunk of fuel, whether it's from old work pensions or an inheritance or whatever. Some lump sums come into their lives, give them big, powerful financial leverage.
And a very powerful why to back that up.
And a very powerful why. I mean, the powerful why is the strongest thing of all. Once you've got that, you find the resources. You don't need the resources. We've discussed before. You don't need the resources. You could find them. The resourcefulness is found. And we help with that. So you don't have to start with money. It isn't, we just help people with money. Actually, we don't. We know it's harder when you don't have anything, but you can always find it. Has that been useful?
That is useful. It's So maybe we can create some kind of graphic here. I think that would be really helpful.
That would be,
and
actually.
certainly that will at any point, as we said, give someone, a guide, almost like a blueprint there, alongside the 7 steps, which of course we already teach to our members.
Yeah. And where are we at with that then? So that's coming up, isn't it?
We're a couple of weeks away from the launch, which is the 30th of March. And actually before that, on the 23rd, so next Monday, we will be releasing the free video training that you've put together for us, Kevin. And might I say, that's a very comprehensive training as well, which really talks about all the aspects of the wealth building process.
Yeah, there's no ROIs in there. Maybe 1 or 2, but not in the way you pulled it out of me today. But I gave up my best, right?
Yeah.
So whether people join the program or not doesn't matter. I just want people to be wealthy. It'd be great to be connected with people. It'd be great to be welcome them in the community. But if they don't, that's absolutely fine. Yeah. I'm not worried about that. But we definitely want to have a really strong relationship with, a good number of people that we can help them on the journey, guide them through it. And we got some brilliant new coaches that have been, trained in the IP, and very much looking forward to showcasing them maybe on some kind of a video or something, Krista, just to let people know the quality of the people we got is outstanding.
Yeah, no, I think we're all coming together in a couple of weeks' time, so we'll undoubtedly do some lives in the Facebook group.
Right, okay, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
So if you're not already in the Facebook group, the Wealth Builders community, definitely do head over to wealthbuilders.co.uk/Facebook. And if you've enjoyed today's episode, why not share this with at least one other person?
That'd be nice.
Give them the gift of the 11 ROIs.
Give a gift, because you never know. You could be their relationship that transforms their wealth. So giving a gift at the beginning, not a bad thing.
Pretty good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for that, Kevin.
You're welcome.
Enjoyed it as always.
Yeah.
Good to be back in the hot seat. And we'll catch up again next week on WealthTalk.
Okay, see ya.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget that we are constantly updating our resources inside the Wealth Builders membership site to help you create, build, and protect your wealth. Head over to wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership right now for free access. That's wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership.